Growing up in a black market circus, I had to fall from a great height dozens of times every day. My bones broke and were set again. I lost the meaning of pain a long time ago. Then my biological parents, wealthy beyond measure, found me and brought me home. The fake heiress, to prevent me from returning, straddled the third-floor balcony. If you dare let her upstairs, I'll jump. But she was clutching the railing tightly, showing no signs of actually jumping. I walked over expressionlessly and peeled her fingers off one by one. Sister, you can't die from a third-floor fall. It's good to sober up with a little pain. Amid her weightless scream, a crisp crack echoed from downstairs. My parents covered their mouths, their eyes filled with fear as they looked at me. That was Isabel's first broken leg, and my welcome gift to the Chin family, on my first day back. Isabel straddled the railing. Eleanor and Arthur stared up in terrified confusion. If you dare let her in, I'll jump, Isabel screamed. Jump then, I said. Isabel whipped her head around, her makeup smeared, her eyeliner a mess of black. You! Don't come near me, you little bastard. Bastard. I smiled. The paternity test is on the coffee table downstairs. Do you want to go take a look? I knew she wouldn't jump. She was waiting for my parents to kick me out. Unfortunately, I don't like waiting. Victor from the black market circus always said, the audience has no patience. Get to the climax quickly. I walked over in 2 steps. Isabel recoiled in fear, but behind her was the void of the third floor. What are you doing? I'm going to jump. I'm really going to jump. I'll help you. I reached out and pried open her fingers, which were clamped onto the railing. Sister, you can't die from a third-floor fall. At most you'll break a couple of legs. Perfect. Then you won't have to practice ballet anymore. The last finger came loose. Crack. The crisp sound of bone cracking reverberated through the garden, standing out sharply after that scream. I leaned over the railing and looked down. Isabel lay on the lawn, her left leg bent at an unnatural angle, the white bone sticking out of the flesh. It hurts. Mom. Help. It hurts so much. Eleanor rushed over like a madwoman, wanting to hug her but afraid to. Arthur looked up at me. Even from 3 stories up, I could see the fear in his eyes. I was familiar with that look. It was the same look a lion tamer had when he first saw a tiger bite through its iron cage. The ambulance took Isabel away. Only Arthur and I were left in the villa. That's your sister. She wanted to jump herself, I said, sitting across from him, my feet on the coffee table. Smack! Arthur slammed his hand on the table. Do you have any humanity? That's the 3rd floor. Someone could die. Can't die. I've fallen from the 5th floor, didn't die. I've fallen from a high trapeze, didn't die. I've been thrown into a lion's cage, didn't die. Arthur stared at me, his expression changing. Put your feet down, he ordered. The Chun family doesn't have room for such ill-mannered things. I slowly rolled up my sleeves, revealing my arm. It was covered in scars. Burns, cuts, whip marks. Arthur's pupils contracted. I held a razor blade to an old scar on my wrist in front of him, and sliced hard. Flesh opened. Beads of blood rushed out, dripping down my elbow and onto the carpet. Arthur's face paled, the muscles in his cheeks twitching. Are you crazy? I looked at the wound. Doesn't hurt. That veterinarian wasn't very good. He didn't use anesthesia when he cut the pain nerves, but I still didn't feel anything. I looked up at him, waving the bloody blade in front of his face. Mr. Arthur, Isabel screamed so beautifully just now. Knowing pain is a blessing, even the pain of a broken leg. The cigarette in Arthur's hand burned his fingers. He threw the cigarette away and stumbled back 2 steps, knocking over the nearby floor lamp. Bandage the wound. Don't get blood everywhere, he yelled before turning and heading upstairs. I didn't bother with the wound. The blood would stop flowing on its own. That was the first rule I learned to survive in the circus. No one in this world will pity you, except yourself. Oh, that's not right. I don't even pity myself. Julian came back on the 3rd night. The eldest son of the Chun family, my older brother. I heard he was out racing cars, and drove back all night because of Isabel's broken leg. The door was kicked open. Wind rushed in, carrying the smell of gasoline and gunpowder. Serafina, get out here. I was sitting at the dining table eating noodles. The housekeeper wouldn't cook for me, so I boiled some noodles myself and added an egg. Julian rushed over and overturned my bowl. The noodle soup splashed everywhere, and the fried egg rolled a few times, covered in dust and stopped in the corner. Are you deaf? Julian grabbed my collar and lifted me out of the chair. He was tall 185 meters. That was Isabel. How dare you push her? Huh. I looked into his bloodshot eyes. She jumped herself. Bullshit. Julian punched the wall next to my ear, causing flakes of paint to fall. Isabel is afraid of even getting shots. Would she dare to jump? It must have been you crazy woman who forced her. Jealous of her, right? Think she stole your place, right? He let go of me and wiped his hands on his clothes. Let me tell you, there's only one daughter in this family, Isabel. You. Go back to where you came from. I'm not leaving, I said, looking directly at him. This is my home. Home? Julian laughed in anger, pointing at my nose. Fine, you don't want to leave, right? Then don't blame me for not treating you like a woman. He raised his hand. I didn't dodge. Stop. Arthur came down from upstairs, his face gloomy. Haven't you lost enough face already? What's all the commotion about? Dad, that crazy woman hurt Isabel like that, and you're still protecting her. Julian pointed at me. Shut up. Arthur glared at him. The police just suppressed it. You want the whole city to know? He turned to look at me, his eyes as cold as ice. Go to school tomorrow to register. The procedures are done. I don't expect you to become anything. Just don't cause trouble outside. If anyone finds out the Chen family has a lunatic, I'll break your legs. Julian glared at me viciously. Go to school? Fine. Serafina, I'll be waiting for you at school. We'll play slowly. Isabel's high school was a private school. The uniform skirt was very short, and it didn't fit me. It was too tight. The moment I entered senior year, 1 class, the whole class was silent for 3 seconds. Then it exploded. Is that the illegitimate daughter? I heard she pushed Isabel down the stairs, so ruthless. Looks so rustic, so poor. I walked to the only empty seat in the last row. The desk was covered with words written in red paint. Murderer, go to hell, get lost. The chair was covered in super glue. So childish. I took out an old newspaper from my bag and put it on the chair. Hey, new kid. The boy in front of me turned around, his hair dyed yellow, with a row of studs in his ear. That was Marcus, Isabel's #1 simp. Do you know the rules? Is this your seat? I stuffed my bag into the desk. Does it have your name on it? Oh, you're pretty tough. Marcus stood up and kicked my desk. The desk hit my chest with a thud. It didn't hurt, but it was annoying. Everyone listened, this wild girl is pretty tough. Marcus picked up a bottle of opened ink on the desk. Let's give our new classmate a shower to get rid of bad luck. The whole class was laughing, waiting to see the drowned chicken show. I didn't dodge the ink, letting the black liquid splash all over my face. But I grabbed the compass on the desk, an old-fashioned iron compass with a very fine needle point. My right hand exerted force, with excellent accuracy. The compass pierced through Marcus' hand holding the ink bottle, pinning it to the desk. Before Marcus could react, the scream had already burst through his throat. The ink bottle fell to the ground and shattered. His hand was pinned to the table, blood flowing out from between his fingers, mixed with black ink, so dirty. The laughter stopped abruptly. I stood up, my face covered in ink, and calmly pulled out the compass. Blood spurted out, splattering all over me. Marcus covered his hand and howled on the ground, his face pale, looking at me like I was a ghost. You. I wiped the blood off the compass point on his uniform. My hand slipped. I looked around, my gaze sweeping over everyone who had just laughed. No one dared to meet my eyes. Anyone else want to stand up for Isabel? Line up, one by one. I sat down and opened my textbook. The first class was Chinese. When the teacher came in, she saw the blood and ink on the floor, and was so scared she sprained her heel. What? What's going on? Who did this? I raised my hand. Teacher. He was feeling down and rammed his hand onto my compass. I couldn't stop him. There were 50 people in the class. Not one dared to object. They were afraid of the tough, even more afraid of those who didn't value their lives. That day I became famous. The name, Mad Dog Serafina, was much louder than second Miss Chen. When school was over, Julian was blocking the school gate. He leaned on that red Ferrari, clutching the car keys in his hand, his eyes looking at me darkly. Not bad, Serafina, seeing red on the first day. Looks like you really don't want to stay in this family. I ignored him and walked straight past. Stop. He reached out to grab my shoulder. I grabbed his wrist with my backhand, twisted it using leverage, and tripped him up. An over-the-shoulder throw. The young master of the Chun family, in full view of everyone, was slammed onto the cement ground at the school gate. The Ferrari was right next to him, reflecting his embarrassing reflection. I dusted off my hands, looking down at him. Brother, don't wear such expensive shoes next time you fight, the grip isn't good. The sound of cell phones taking pictures was all around. Julian lay on the ground, his face flushed purple, unable to get up for a long time. I knew. The feud was set. Good. Julian retaliated quickly. The next day after school, a black SUV was parked at the school gate. Four burly men in racing suits surrounded me, holding baseball bats in their hands, slapping their palms with a smack-smack sound. Julian sat on the hood, smoking a cigarette, with a bandage on his face. Get in the car. He blew a smoke ring. I'll take you to a good place. There were students watching the show all around, but no one dared to call the police. Who would dare to interfere with the Chun family's young master? I slung my bag over my shoulder and got in the car. What was there to be afraid of? In the circus, I was often stuffed into a cage and transported to the arena. The car drove to an abandoned racetrack in the suburbs. This was Julian's territory, full of discarded tires and oil drums, the air filled with the smell of burnt rubber. Get out! Julian dragged me out of the car and pushed me in front of a pile of tires. Four burly men surrounded me, holding baseball bats in their hands, slapping their palms with a smack-smack sound. Serafina, did you enjoy throwing me yesterday? Julian flicked his cigarette, but towards my face. Sparks almost splashed into my eyes, but I didn't blink. I'll let you enjoy it enough today. Beat her, break her legs and send her to Isabel to apologize. The first stick hit me on the back. Very heavy. My spine felt like it had been struck by a sledgehammer. But I didn't fall. Pain blocking made me like a broken machine, only knowing that the force was not small, but not feeling it. The thug was stunned for a moment. Is this woman made of iron? Just as he was stunned, I moved. I grabbed his wrist, dove down, my body rotating close to his torso, and my knee slammed hard into his ribs. Stomping, spinning, sweeping. 10 seconds later, four cripples lay on the ground, wailing and clutching their broken limbs. I held the bloodstained baseball bat and walked up to Julian. He was dumbfounded. He didn't even notice the cigarette burning a hole in his crotch. You know Kung Fu. This isn't Kung Fu. I pressed the baseball bat against his Adam's apple. It's survival instinct. You wouldn't understand, hothouse flower. Julian swallowed hard, cold sweat trickling down his temples. Serafina. Misunderstanding. Brother will take you out to play. Play. I laughed, grabbed his collar, and slammed him against the hood of a car. I grabbed the tow rope next to me and skillfully tied a slip knot around his wrist. The other end, I secured to the rear tow hook of the SUV. Serafina, you're insane. I'm your brother. Julian screamed, his voice cracking. I got into the driver's seat and started the engine. The engine roared. Run faster, brother. I looked in the rearview mirror, shifted into gear, and stepped on the gas. The car started moving. Julian was forced to run after the car, stumbling and staggering like a dog on a leash. I circled him 5 times around the racetrack, until his legs went weak, and he was being dragged along the ground like a pile of mud, his pants ripped, his knees covered in blood. I finally stopped the car. I got out and untied the rope. Julian lay on the ground, retching, his face covered in tears, snot and dirt, with not a trace of the young master's arrogance. I squatted down and patted his face. Got it. Next time you want to mess with me, bring more people. This little bit isn't enough to fill a crack. Julian was thrown back home by me. Eleanor screamed when she saw the scene and fainted. Arthur rushed down, saw Julian covered in injuries, and trembled with anger. Serafina, you beast. You want to kill your own brother? I sat on the sofa, eating an apple. Brother took me to the racetrack to play. He had too much fun and fell. I chewed on the apple, looking at Arthur with provocative eyes. Julian lay on the ground, trembling as he pointed at me. Dad, she's a monster. She tied me to the car and dragged me. Kill her. Shut up. Arthur suddenly roared. He didn't look at Julian, but stared at me intently. For bodyguards can't beat one girl? Those 4 waists. I snorted disdainfully. For more would be the same, sending food. Arthur was silent. He walked up to me, looking down at me. I didn't realize you had this ability. He turned his head and looked at Julian on the ground, a hint of disgust in his eyes. Lacking in skill, and you still have the face to cry. How did the Chin family raise such a waste? Julian's eyes widened in disbelief. Dad, what are you saying? She almost killed me. Did she kill you? Arthur said coldly. If you died, I would collect your corpse for you. If you're alive, shut up and go heal. Julian was stunned. I was also taken aback. Then I understood. This was Arthur. Interests above all else. He doted on Julian before because he was the heir. Now that he discovered that this wild product had stronger combat power and more value for exploitation, the scales tilted. Disgusting. That night, I passed by the study. The door was ajar. Arthur's voice came out. That girl is quite ruthless, and her skills are good. It's a bit of a waste to send her for marriage. Doesn't the CEO of that security company always want this type of bodyguard? Or the boss of that underground fight club? If properly trained, she might be more useful than Isabel. I stood in the shadows, clutching the voice recorder in my hand. The red light flashed. Training? Isabel was discharged from the hospital. That day was my 18th birthday. Arthur, for the sake of face and to show his benevolent father image, held a grand banquet at the villa. All the dignitaries of the city came. Halfway through the banquet, the lights in the hall suddenly dimmed. The big screen lit up. On the screen, a thin little girl was hanging upside down, her body covered in whip marks. That was me 10 years ago. Then the scene changed to the security footage of me beating the bodyguards at the racetrack and dragging Julian. Although the image quality was blurry, the ruthlessness could be felt through the screen. A few blood-red words popped up on the screen. Chin family's daughter? Or a killing machine? The lights came on. Isabel appeared on the second floor railing in a wheelchair, holding a microphone in her hand, laughing maniacally. Did you all see clearly? This is the good daughter the Chin family brought back. A violent maniac. A psycho. Keeping someone like this at home will eventually kill us all. The whole place was in an uproar. The guests retreated, looking at me like a monster. Eleanor covered her mouth and collapsed on the sofa, crying. Arthur's face was livid, and he roared at Isabel. What are you doing? Turn it off. Isabel ignored him. Dad, I'm saving this family. She's a devil. I stood in the center of the crowd, holding a cake knife. Everyone thought I would go crazy, but I smiled. Sister, the video was edited well. I took out a USB drive from my handbag and threw it to the technician next to me. Play this. The technician was frightened by my gaze and nervously inserted the USB drive. The big screen lit up again. This time it was an audio waveform diagram. Arthur's voice came out clearly. That girl is quite ruthless. It's a bit of a waste to send her for marriage. The boss of that underground fight club. If properly trained, she might be more useful than Isabel. Dead silence. The whole place was silent. This was even more explosive than the violent video just now. Even a tiger wouldn't eat its own cub. Arthur was planning to sell his own daughter like livestock. Arthur completely broke down, rushing to smash the screen. Turn it off. This is fake. No one believed him. Everyone looked at him with disdain. I lifted my skirt, stepped on my high heels, and walked up the stairs step by step. Top, top, top. Like the countdown to death. I walked up to Isabel, looking at her pale face. Want to play me to death? You're still too naive. I gave her wheelchair a hard shove. Isabel screamed as she and the wheelchair rolled down the stairs. Bang, bang, bang. He finally crashed in the center of the hall, landing right at Arthur's feet. This time, I doubt he even kept his spine. I stood high up, watching the chaotic high society below. So filthy. The banquet had turned into a farce. The Chun family became the laughingstock of the city. Arthur spent a fortune suppressing trending searches, but Chen's stock still hit its daily limit. The villa was filled with a deathly silence. Isabel was paralyzed and sent to a nursing home. Eleanor locked herself in her room all day, chanting scriptures. Arthur was busy dealing with the board of directors, and had no time to manage the family. Only Julian and I were left in the living room. His leg hadn't fully recovered, and he limped when he walked. He looked at me with a complicated expression. Fear, confusion, and a hint of indescribable despair. "You won," he said in a hoarse voice. "The family is ruined. Are you satisfied?" I poured a glass of water, but didn't drink it. "It's not over yet." "Not over yet." Julian glared at me. "What else do you want? Kill Dad too." Killing him would be too easy on him. I took a yellowed photograph from my pocket and threw it on the coffee table. In the photo, a young Arthur was shaking hands with a man wearing gold-rimmed glasses. That man, I would recognize him even if I were ashes. Victor from the Black Circus. "What is this?" Julian picked up the photo. "Look on the back." Written on the back was a string of numbers and a date. October 12, 2005, 5 million. Does that date look familiar? Julian's hand trembled. "This is the day you went missing." "Went missing?" I sneered. That day, Chen's group was on the verge of bankruptcy, its cash flow cut off. The next day, this money arrived. Chen's group was revived. Julian's pupils dilated sharply, as if he had been struck by lightning. "Are you saying I was sold?" I stared into his eyes, word by word. 5 million. Our good father sold me as a commodity to that pervert Victor. Impossible. Even tigers don't eat their cubs. Julian's lips were pale as he tried to argue. Tigers don't eat their cubs? I pointed towards the study upstairs. You heard the recording that day too. In his eyes, we are just commodities. I was a fighter in the arena. You were a tool for a marriage alliance. Useless, then we're just scrap. Julian collapsed on the sofa, the photo in his hand fluttering to the ground. His worldview had crumbled. The father he had always respected was actually a demon who profited from human misery. "Do you want revenge?" Julian looked up abruptly, his eyes filled with fire. The rage of being betrayed. "Yes," he said through gritted teeth. "Good." I extended my hand. Arthur had been unusually well-behaved these past few days. He didn't go out, didn't scold people, and even cooked himself. A table full of dishes, the braised pork glistening red. Even a bottle of opened Romani Conti. "Serafina, Julian, come down for dinner." When he called us, his face was plastered with a smile. A smile that looked like it was coated with wax, fake and reflective. Julian and I exchanged glances. A feast at hung men. But we still went downstairs. Dad was wrong before. Arthur poured wine for us, the red liquid swirling in the glass like blood. The company is having a hard time now, and the family is a mess. We're family after all, blood is thicker than water. He raised his glass. "This glass, Dad, toasts to you. Let's have a good life from now on." Julian picked up his glass, his hand trembling slightly, but he concealed it well, tilting his head back and finishing it. I also picked it up. I took a sip. A little bitter. My tongue was numb. It was spiked. Arthur watched us drink it. The wrinkles at the corners of his eyes widened with laughter. That's right, that's right. He put down his glass and looked at his watch. "Actually, Dad has arranged a way out for you." "A way out?" Julian pretended to be confused, holding his forehead. "Dad, I'm a little dizzy." "Dizzy is right." The smile on Arthur's face instantly disappeared, becoming sinister. "That Victor, he always misses Serafina. He's offered a high price to take you back." I held the wine glass, not speaking. Sure enough, a leopard can't change its spots. As for Julian, Arthur turned to look at Julian, his gaze like he was looking at a pig waiting to be slaughtered. "Although you're good for nothing, your body is still okay. Victor has a client who needs a kidney, and the match is just right." "Dad." Julian's eyes widened, and he tried to stand up, but his legs gave way and he collapsed in his chair. "You want to sell us? I'm your own son." Don't blame Dad for being ruthless. Arthur stood up and straightened his tie. The company's hole is too big, and I have to run away. Taking you with me is a burden. It's better to turn you into money. He clapped his hands. Come in, tie them up. The kitchen door opened. 3 bodyguards in black suits walked out, holding thick hemp ropes. They were ambushed from the start. Julian collapsed in his chair, retching. I also slumped on the table, motionless. Arthur walked over and reached out to pat my face. Daughter, don't blame Dad. This world is originally hell. Dad is just sending you back to a hell that is more suitable for you. His hand just touched my face. The chopstick in my hand, I had been gripping it silently for a long time. I suddenly burst out. The bamboo chopstick directly pierced the back of the hand of the bodyguard closest to me. The bodyguard screamed. I kicked away the chair, grabbed the wine bottle on the table with my backhand, and smashed it on his head with a bang. Glass shards flew, and red wine mixed with blood covered his face. Arthur was stunned, taking 2 steps back and crashing into the wine cabinet. You're not dizzy. I grew up soaking in medicine jars. I threw away the broken half of the wine bottle, leaving only the sharp glass shards in my hand. That little bit of knockout drops is nothing. Julian, stop acting. I yelled. Julian, who had been slumped in the chair, suddenly jumped up. He had already spat out half of what he drank, and had taken emetics beforehand. Although his legs were weak, he still had the strength to fight with all his might. He grabbed the plate of braised pork and slammed it hard into the face of another bodyguard, scalding hot oil and broth. You old bastard. Want to sell my kidney? Dream on. The scene instantly descended into chaos. This was a life-or-death situation. I lunged forward like a mad dog. The glass shards ripped through my suit, tearing through skin and flesh. The smell of blood sent my adrenaline soaring. I couldn't feel the pain. A bodyguard punched me in the stomach, but I didn't even flinch. Instead, I plunged the glass shard into his thigh. An eye for an eye. In 3 minutes, all 3 bodyguards were down. Julian, his face covered in blood, sat on the ground panting, still clutching half of a broken plate. Only Arthur was left standing in the living room. He fumbled in his pocket and pulled out a stun gun. Don't come any closer. Don't come any closer. I advanced step by step. My hands were covered in blood. Scared? Were you scared 18 years ago when you sold me? Were you scared just now when you wanted to cut out your son's kidney? He pulled the trigger. I didn't dodge, but instead grabbed a metal tray from the table and held it in front of my chest. The barbed stun darts hit the tray, sending sparks flying. Even though the residual electricity sent a tingle through my arm, I didn't stop. The paralyzing pain that would be fatal to a normal person was just a slight hindrance to me. Taking advantage of his stunned moment, I stepped in front of him and grabbed the hot barrel of the gun. Mr. Arthur, when playing with guns, your hands are shaking. With a forceful twist. Crack. Arthur's wrist bent backwards at a 90-degree angle. I kicked him to the ground and stepped on his chest. The sound of ribs breaking filled the air. Once. Twice. This kick is for 3-year-old Serafina. This kick is for Owen. This kick is for Julian. I only stopped when his mouth was full of bloody foam, and he was only exhaling, not inhaling. Julian crawled over, looking at his half-dead father on the ground. The last glimmer of light in his eyes faded. Call the police, he said. Not yet. I took the phone from Arthur's pocket. There's one last big gift. I dialed Victor's number, turned on the speakerphone. Hello? Victor, is the merchandise ready? A chilling voice, like a viper's hiss. Imitating Arthur's tone, I lowered my voice. It's ready. At the villa. Come and inspect it yourself. This merchandise is particularly wild. Good. I'll be there in half an hour. Hang up. I looked at Arthur's despairing eyes. Dad, didn't you want to send me back? I called him too. On the road to the underworld, you old partners can keep each other company. Half an hour later, Victor rushed into the villa with his men. What greeted him was not a trussed-up merchandise. It was bodyguards lying all over the floor, me wielding a fire axe, and Julian holding a baseball bat, and the SWAT team that had been ambushing outside the windows. Don't move. Police. Red and blue police lights flashed, tearing the darkness to shreds. When Victor saw the police, his legs turned to jelly, and he knelt on the ground and wet his pants. The man who controlled life and death like a god in the circus was actually a coward. Arthur was carried onto an ambulance. His wrist was shattered, 6 ribs were broken, and he had internal bleeding. But he wouldn't die. The law would keep him alive, to rot in prison. It was all over. Julian and I sat by the ambulance, treating our wounds. Snow began to fall from the sky. Fine snowflakes landed on our faces, cool and refreshing. "What now?" Julian asked. He didn't inherit the Chin family fortune. The mess was insolvent, and it was liquidated in bankruptcy. "I don't know." I reached out and caught a snowflake. "Maybe find a place where no one knows me, and open a flower shop." "A flower shop?" Julian laughed, pulling at the corner of his injured mouth. "These hands of yours are better with a knife than with flowers. Then I'll sell flowers with thorns." 3 months later. A small town in the south. A flower shop opened at the entrance of an alley, called Owen's Flower Shop. The shop only sold one type of flower, blue roses. Roses dyed with a special dye, as blue as blood, with thorns. Julian opened a repair shop next door. He was covered in oil all day long, but he looked happier than when he was a young master. Another winter. Heavy snow. I sat in front of the shop, staring blankly at the falling snow. A little girl passed by, slipped and fell face first. Her knee was scraped, and blood seeped out. "Wah, mommy. It hurts so much." She sat in the snow and cried. The young mother ran over and hugged her, coaxing. "Hush, hush, it doesn't hurt, mommy's here." I watched that scene. My hand reached into my pocket, and touched a utility knife. The blade pushed out and retracted. It wasn't that I envied her having a mother to hug. It was that I envied her knowing how to feel pain. The doctor said that my nerve damage was irreversible. For the rest of my life, I would never feel pain again. "It's okay." I pulled out the most beautiful blue rose from the flower bucket and walked over. "Don't cry." I handed the flower to the little girl. "This is for you. It's called Miracle." The little girl stopped crying, tears still clinging to her eyelashes. She took the flower and smiled. "Thank you, big sister. Big sister, you're so pretty." I smiled and patted her head. A little warmth came from the palm of my hand. It was body temperature. I turned around and closed the store door. The wind chimes jingled. It was cold. But I seemed to feel a little bit of warmth. It was a faint flame, growing from the bottom of my heart, and unquenchable.